Hello and welcome. You're watching Oneindia News. This is Global Chit Chat, where we talk about the top developments in geopolitics in the recent week with our expert, Mr. Tritivesh Singh Maini. Hello, sir. Welcome back to our show.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Thanks.
Good afternoon, sir. So, sir, 2 days ago on Sunday, India won against Pakistan, and the entire country kind of released a sigh of relief. And so, what do you think that this victory, India's victory, is going to mean for India-Pakistan ties? Do you think that it's going to actually affect it? Because there are talks about Pakistan trying to improve its imports from India. We're going to come to that later. But do you think that this victory is going to mean something for the entire relationship within the two countries?
So as we have been discussing in the previous weeks, that in terms of people-to-people contact, ever since last year, things have been happening, albeit incrementally. Of course, that has not been due to, it's not because of the governments. That is because of the goodwill between people, between ordinary people. But even what was interesting was that, like the clash last year in 2021, which was part of the T20 World Cup, even this was played in a very cordial atmosphere. So, earlier, whenever India Pakistan matches were held, even on neutral territories, on a third turf also, there was this. Obviously, it was keenly contested and there was tension, but between the players, there was no. It wasn't played in a very. There was aggression on
Visible
the field.
hostility, right?
Yes, there was
Right.
aggression on the field, but
Hmm.
players, there was no bad blood as such.
Correct.
Competitive but fair. That sort of whatever. So I think that is good. I think on the whole, and you pointed to trade, which we'll talk about later.
Hmm.
But I think
Right.
there's also point to the fact whether that there can at least be bilateral sporting events, also more bilateral sporting events, and the fact that this is again being played at UAE. I think a lot
Hmm.
of people have been talking about, let's say, beginning a bilateral series
Hmm.
in UAE, because Pakistan plays most of its its home cricket series have been
Hmm.
played in UAE in any case for over a decade. Uh, After 2009, after the terror attack on the visiting
Right.
citizen. So, and India also, I mean, last year, the IPL, for instance, the last half of the IPL was also shifted to UAE. There's a large expat population. So I think I don't necessarily see that this will, obviously, this won't have a significant bearing on the broader relationship, but it certainly it has a positive message in terms of the possibility of sports events. And obviously, whatever else has happened in the last couple of days is, you can say, it will be viewed in this chain of events only, but it may not necessarily be related. So simply put, I think two things. One is the revival of bilateral sports, and preferably, if you look at cricket, for instance, obviously it has to be neutral turf, and
Hmm.
UAE, because the expat population, because of its location, and it's becoming a default sort of cricket hub, especially for. I mean, the Asia Cup also shifted basically from Sri Lanka
Hmm.
to UAE because of the economic crisis over there. So that also, and even for the UAE, I think it's very good. I mean, for its own, they're trying to promote the game of cricket. So this will
Hmm.
give a significant boost. So there are a number
Right.
of points there.
Right, and yeah, coming to the imports there, Pakistan is facing a major destructive flood currently, right? Over 1,000, I believe, is suffering, or I think over 1,000 is dead, I believe. So, amid this crisis, Pakistan Finance Minister Miftah Ismail, rather, he said that, they are considering importing edibles and vegetables from India, which was halted. I think it was halted back in. I'm not sure when it was halted, but the entire trade with New Delhi was halted from Pakistan's end, and they are thinking of resuming it, considering the crisis that they are facing at the moment. So, do you think that that is going to improve the ties further, like just furthering the conversation that we were having in the previous topic?
Yeah, so very pertinent point you have made. So trade was disrupted in August 2019 after
19.
the revocation of Article 370 in Jammu
Hmm.
and Kashmir. Right? So that was the first step. Now, there have been other, I mean, so for instance, Afghan goods, for instance, have been allowed to come via Pakistan. In between, that has been happening. Similarly, India has been sending relief materials via
Hmm.
Pakistan. So that is important. We need to keep bear that in mind.
Hmm.
As far as bilateral trade is concerned, in 2021 also there was a talk which we
Hmm.
have discussed earlier. that Pakistan, and same, they were looking at an incremental method where they look at importing essential commodities. Even now, it's, edibles, some agriculture, some vegetables, because obviously, if you look at the rising floods plus the rising inflation, that is what has prompted Pakistan in this direction. Now, I think if you look at the bilateral relationship, it always does better when things happen in a very incremental way without too much of hype under the radar. Now, so you have some instances of people to people linkages. Uh, as we discussed earlier, sporting events, not just a cricket match, even other sporting events have not been played in an atmosphere or an environment of hostility. Through social media, you have sections, which have been saying that, okay, at least you can have a normal relationship. And even if you look, I mean, talking about the cricket match itself, the just going back to that, the bonhomie, especially between some cricketers, was clearly evident. So this at least it creates a space for a normal relationship where you can look one at in an step by step manner in increasing the people to people contacts, and even in the area of trade, you can start off with essential commodities and gradually, because there are constituencies on both sides which will oppose this, there are political and there is opposition, right? So for any political outfit to do that all of a sudden is tough. But now there is an opportunity, because obviously, with the rising inflation, the you were talking about the floods, the damage caused by conservative estimates is to the tune of 10 billion. Even though the IMF has released, I mean, that is the estimates which have been given by senior officials, of the Pakistan government. IMF has released, I think, 1.7 billion, the sixth and seventh tranche probably of overall 6.5 billion, which had been signed up in 2019. So that has come as some relief, but the damage is much more. Now, so Pakistan actually needs to look at to give precedence to its economic interests. And in fact, yesterday there has also been, I think, a talk of they're even looking at some pipeline with Iran. So, and India on the other, if you look at the Indian side, as we have said, that there is, the especially the two or three North Indian states would significantly benefit, and if especially if agricultural commodities, if trade in that resumes, the farmer gets a much better price. So some states benefit, and in the broader context, I think it's always good to have some channels open without, as I said, too much of hype or expectations, and then you can look at other areas, you can explore other areas, because as it is in a post-COVID world, not just India and Pakistan, even other countries in South Asia, they really need to sit down together, uh, look at other areas, how to, sort out to deal with the economic challenges. Because I think, as we have also mentioned earlier, that some of the challenges are common. I mean, dip in remittances, for instance, many of the South Asian countries have. So there has to be some. So if the India-Pakistan relationship is manageable, even the overall, geo-economic situation in South Asia also can improve, and that is a dire need, I think, in the post-COVID.
You just mentioned that India provided aid to Afghanistan via Pakistan. So coming to Afghanistan, so the right now the world's two most extreme. What do you call the entire world is kind of against these two countries, mostly Afghanistan and Russia, and both are kind of in an alliance, like there are possible alliance that Russia is going to provide fuel to Afghanistan to take it out of the economic slump that it is going through because of all the freezing of the assets since the Taliban takeover, right? So what do you think that do you think that this is actually going to pan out, and if so, how do you think it's going to have an effect globally?
So I think basically this is again an interesting chain of events, that countries are not willing to give formal diplomatic recognition to the Taliban, but economic linkages. If you look at China and Afghanistan, whether you look at other countries also, they are realizing that you need to have economic linkages, and obviously there's also a realization that that on the one hand, while you need uh, commitments from the Taliban, you can't allow the people, the ordinary Afghan people, to suffer, and this point has been reiterated by multilateral organizations and all as well, right? So that is one part of it. Second is, obviously, what is interesting is that Russia would also want to be sending messages to the West this way. As I said, China has already been has provided assistance, and one of the main projects, for instance, is apart from natural resources, China is also keen to get Afghanistan on board the Belt and Road Initiative. So
Mhm.
Russia now, and this talk regarding Afghanistan getting the gas and benzene also from Russia. This has been
Mhm.
going on for some time, and probably both countries are looking at a barter
Mhm.
method. So I think it reiterates, the complexities of the geopolitical situation. That countries also don't want to give full recognition, but at the same time, they cannot ignore the economic interests, and also obviously Russia is sending its own message, and Afghanistan is also saying that the West,
Mhm.
because all I mean, there's an apprehension amongst all countries, but the West is more apprehensive with
Mhm.
regard to giving recognition due to human rights issues and so on and so forth. So it's a balancing act, and there are other apart from China, Russia, and all. Even with the Middle East, also, Afghanistan has been opening up. So for instance, we had discussed, I think earlier also probably we made a mention that a UAE-based company
Mhm.
is managing the main airports in
Mhm.
Afghanistan. Earlier, this it was believed that Qatar would be doing it, but UAE has been handed over that. So Afghanistan is also trying to now. Obviously, the Taliban has to give priority to economics.
Mhm.
Whatever else, I mean, they are also embroiled in numerous other issues, but they cannot ignore economics, and they cannot. I mean, this is a major humanitarian crisis. So again, I think it's about the the dilemmas of geopolitics versus economics. And I would like to add here that the other country which has an important role to play in the regional context with regard to is also Iran. So it
Mhm.
remains to be seen as to how Afghanistan-Iran relations play out, and whether economic linkages between both also build up. So,
Right.
and this challenge, I mean, obviously the challenge, the humanitarian crisis in Afghanistan is a challenge for everyone. I mean,
Mhm.
nobody can really overlook it. So,
Mhm.
uh, I don't think anybody's really going to stop Afghanistan, can really stop
Mhm.
Afghanistan, because as it is, other countries are also leveraging the
Mhm.
situation and having economic linkages. So it'll be very tough to really, stop
Right.
them from these sort of linkages. And it remains to be seen how the barter works out.
Exactly. So that is my question, where you mentioned that it can be a barter method. So apart from sending a message, what else do you think that Russia can procure out of Afghanistan at this point of time? Because they are in an economic slump. I don't think they have anything to offer. So what do you think that, apart from sending a message, what else do you think that Russia is going to get out of this exchange of fuel and so on?
See, there are obviously we know that Afghanistan also is endowed with certain natural resources. Then
Right.
certain commodity
Mhm.
food items like dry fruits, for instance. I think
Mhm.
that's part of the part. They looked at things like raisins. I mean,
Mhm.
obviously we know Afghanistan is known for the dry fruits and all. So that way, some natural resources plus
Mhm.
especially some food commodities, given that the supply chains have been disturbed all over. But I think for Russia, it is all these moves. I mean, there is obviously an economic uh, uh, factor, but for Russia, symbolism is also very important. For Afghanistan, the economic part is extremely important.
Right, right, right. So thank you so much for joining us today, sir, and thank you for all the information that you have given us today. And thank you everybody for watching Global Chit Chat. Please catch us again on next week on One India News. Thank you so much.